TCU was up 28-7 on a team that likes to run the football, and then they were not. They end up collapsing, and they lose 35-34. We're here to break it all down on the live Locked On Horned Frogs postgame show. It's your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Welcome into the post-game show. Was hoping for good vibes tonight and thought early in the second half, thought we were going to go down that path, but TCU shockingly just blows this game in remarkable fashion. They lose to UCF 35-34. Kyle Limmerman, true freshman kicker, had a chance to had a chance. I'm not going to act like that was an easy kick. 57-yard field goal. I think the broadcast said 58. I'm not sure officially what it was, but you get the idea. It was a really long field goal, and he actually had the leg to do it, but it was wide right. And so now TCU's 2-1. They follow the Gus Malzahn's UCF team, and the craziest thing about it was UCF did a lot of damage on the ground, which is what they wanted to do. They came in tonight with the number one rushing offense in the nation. They had 289 yards rushing. RJ Harvey had 29 carries for 180 yards. A couple of things that stood out tonight. In some ways, that ball game felt like Colorado last year. Now, it played out a lot differently in that TCU was always playing catch-up against Colorado in that opening game. But Colorado had really good individual skill players. Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders was great. Dylan Edwards had an outstanding game. You get what I mean. And tonight, UCF, RJ Harvey was incredible on the ground. And then KJ Jefferson, not a remarkable stat line, but made some big throws when he had to. I mean, he had 230 yards passing on only 13 completions. And then Kobe Hudson, 6 catches for 145 yards and 2 touchdowns, and ended up having the game-winning touchdown that sealed it with 36 seconds left to put UCF up on top. A lot of wild things happened in that ball game. For one, TCU blocked 2 field goals and an extra point. So they were up 21-7 at halftime. But that score was a little misleading, or I shouldn't say it was misleading. I guess it was misleading. If you looked at that score, you would think the defense played outstanding football in the first half. And they did okay. I mean, they kind of bowed up when they had to. They got a stop right before halftime that was big, and then Bud Clark got a blocked field goal. And so they had a 14-point lead going into halftime. They got a blocked kick on the second possession of the game after stalling out that drive. So they did a good job of putting UCF in some uncomfortable situations in third and long. In the second half, I'll have to look at the drive chart here in a second. I don't think they got a single stop. I believe UCF scored every single time they touched the ball in the second half. And Andy Avalos, he's not going to speak to the media because coordinators typically don't. I don't understand why they didn't make more of a commitment to loading the box. Now, when UCF decided to throw the football, they had success doing that as well. JT Broughton had a really rough game. Kobe Hudson, did a number on him. Channing Canada came in for like a possession to kind of change pace, and that didn't really work either. He still got burned, and then unfortunately he went out with what looked like maybe a concussion, so I hope he gets okay. But the secondary struggled when they were called upon as well. But the main thing was the Knights just ran the ball down their throat. I mean, I feel like the most concerning thing about this, and the main takeaway is, they just got dominated in the trenches by UCF. And UCF's O-line is really big. They're physical. Their defensive line, they got a couple dudes. But we'll get to the offense in a second. Defensively, there were so many plays tonight where RJ Harvey was getting 4, 5, 6 yards without getting touched. I mean, he's just getting to the second level of the defense. Defensive line's getting washed down. Linebackers can't come through and make plays. And he's setting up 2nd and 3, 3rd and 2. It felt like they were in that mode all night long. And I know a lot of people are commenting. I'll try to get some of those things as we go on here. But they were constantly in 2nd and short, 3rd and short. And it felt like even if they didn't convert those third downs, they were going to go for it on fourth down and probably get it because they were just doing such a great job running the football. On the flip side of that, TCU could not run the ball tonight. And I mean, I say they couldn't run the ball. They didn't even really try. Cam Cook had 35 yards on 11 carries. As a team, they ran for 58 yards. They ran for 58 yards in a Power 4 conference game. And they had 17 rushing attempts as opposed to 53 passing attempts. Now, what they tried to do, especially in the third quarter, was supplement the run game, or I guess make up for that disparity in the run game by throwing those screen passes, those little stop routes, just anything you could imagine in the quick passing game to try to get some yardage on first down. They had a couple third down conversions there. But the defense the defense did get a stop in the second half because they got a stop and they forced a punt with about 4 minutes left. And TCU was backed up at their own 15-yard line with 4 minutes left. And the possession that killed me the most tonight, I guess aside from the defense giving up the game-winning score, is they just went 3 and out. And since they couldn't run the football, they ran these 3 plays. A little dump off pass to Drake Dabney, which went for 0 yards. Then they ran a screen pass to Cam Cook, which was really telegraphed. And James Brockermeyer and Colton Deary, I don't know what they were trying to. I mean, they got out to the second level. They were trying to look for work, but they just completely whiffed and ran past the UCF defenders and ran into each other, and there was no blocking on the play. And so that got 2 yards. And then on 3rd and 8, they threw a crossing pattern to Savion Williams. He made the first defender miss. Couldn't get past the second person. And so 3 and out. And then they have to punt the football. And then UCF just marched down the field again and scored with 36 seconds left and won the football game. They just got destroyed up front. And then when the game mattered, they didn't even try. They didn't even try to run the ball. Like Dylan Holcomb saying they have no run game. Yeah, but they're not even making an attempt. Ryan Lawson says clock management was abysmal. 3 passing plays with 4 minutes left. I know, but like they have such little belief in the offensive line and in the run game that they're not trying to run the football. And when they went up 28-7 early in the second half, my thought was, okay, because I'm kind of thinking about like post-game show, what's the story going to be? And I thought to myself, well, it's probably I'll probably come out here and say this is a flawed football team. There's obvious flaws. They can't win battles up front, and so they're just going to have to try to find ways to get around that. But when it was 28-7, I thought, well, the story will kind of be, I don't think this is like a championship caliber team, but they can win some games on Josh Hoover's arm. And I guess from a silver lining standpoint, I don't really want to spend a lot of time there because this was just a really bad loss, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But Josh Hoover's a dude. I mean, he looked really good tonight. And Jack Besh had a really nice game, 200 yards on 9 catches, I think. Trinity Jordan on Twitter asked me why they went away from Savion Williams in the second half. I'd have to rewatch it to really see. I mean, he was non-existent in the second half of this ball game. You're right. So I don't know why they didn't throw him the ball more. He made 2 great touchdown catches in the first half, but I will say, I think Jack Besh is probably their best receiver, and I feel like Savion is a really good player, and I hope that he excels this year. But it feels like right now Josh just has made Jack Besh his go-to guy. So that would be my first thought. But going back to the team in general, offensively, if you can't run the ball, or if you're not even going to attempt to, like, at a certain point, that falls on the coaching staff. And you can't keep blaming this on the recruiting failures of the previous staff. Like, that's a big issue. And they've made an effort over the last few recruiting cycles to bring in linemen that can get on the field and that can get the job done, but those guys aren't ready to play yet. And so they've gone in the transfer portal the past few seasons. This year they went and got Bless Harris, and they went and got Carson Bruno and Remington Strickland. But if you're going to pay these guys in the portal, and I know that, one thing that's kind of become clear through the last few years, like Colorado's kind of dealing with the same issue. It's really difficult to build a competent offensive line through the transfer portal. But, this is less than just incompetence. They didn't attempt to run the ball tonight because they're so afraid that they can't get any push at the point of attack that they can't do it. And my goodness, that's a huge issue. And that's not an issue that's going to get any better. I see some UCF fans have joined. That's a really good football team. I think they're very talented. And you're probably not going to be super happy with my thoughts on this game, but it's just this was such a collapse by this TCU team. But when you can't run the ball, you can't shorten games. So even with this UCF offense that's also, in all honesty, pretty one-dimensional, they can just run their offense. And they could run their offense, one, because, the TCU offense couldn't, milk the clock. But then also, the defense was just getting destroyed at the point of attack. And so they were getting chunk plays on the ground. This wasn't 3 yards in a cloud of dust. This was not all right, we're setting up 2nd and 7, and now it's 3rd and 4, and now we got another first down, and let's move the chains, and we're just going to kind of slowly get back into the line. This was RJ Harvey getting 7, 10, 12, 16. He was just going and going and making it happen. And this is a tough offense to defend because, they do a lot of window dressing. They run the jet sweep, and they'll fake that motion, and KJ's a threat in the run game. But bottom line is they couldn't get the job done tonight. The defense couldn't get off the field when they had to. And even in that final drive, when UCF's working against the clock, they still just did most of that on the ground. And that was a great throw by KJ to Kobe Hudson in the end zone. But a lot of that was just running the football and getting it done. Somebody asked me how much of the run game struggles following Cam Cook. I mean, I think it's part of it. But when you only get 11 carries, I don't feel like after 3 games I have a really good feel for who Cam Cook is as a back. He had a drop tonight on the sideline. That was unfortunate. Now, there was a UCF defender that flashed in front of his face, and that was a great ball by Josh, and it hit him in the chest and looked really bad. I think it was a much tougher catch than the TV angle let on. But I would just say, at the moment, I would get, if I had to give a grade, I would give Cam an incomplete. I don't think he's an amazing running back yet. It's also his first year starting. But I feel like so much of this just falls on the O-line. Now, they do a really good job in pass protection. And I think for the rest of the year, it's probably going to be like this. They're going to throw the ball a lot. And they're going to try to make up for what they can't do on the ground through the air. But eventually, you have to find a way to run the ball and get it done. All right, we're going to take a quick break. You can keep commenting here. TCU's 2-1 after a tough loss to UCF. This is Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. If you need to recruit people for your small business like TCU needs to recruit better offense and defensive linemen, you should go to LinkedIn, linkedin.com/lockedon. You can post your job for free there. 86% of small businesses find a qualified candidate within 24 hours, and 70% of LinkedIn users, they don't use any other job site. So that's where they're looking. They have screening questions, all sorts of awesome things that you can use to, weed out candidates that might not fit what you're trying to do. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free. LinkedIn, a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. Byron Bailey said Josh's arm's going to fall off. That's going to be an issue. You're right, Byron. Like I was going to make a joke tonight about having to ice his arm every week, but the jokes aren't as fun when you lose, right? This is rough, man. This is a bad loss, and it's on everybody. But obviously, like it comes back to Sonny. And the crazy thing is, there weren't a ton of silly penalties tonight. I mean, there was that false start by Jack that led to a 1st and 15. But overall, I think at that point they had 3 penalties for 35 yards. I'm not sure what they finished with. But it wasn't like they made a ton of dumb mistakes. Like Bud Clark had a targeting penalty that got, reversed. But they just got beat. Like they just got beat at the point of attack. They got beat on every possession late in that ball game. And I don't understand why Avalos didn't sack the box more. But also the issue is they got blown off the ball. Dylan Holcomb brought up a good point. Yeah, they had Remington Strickland on a false start at the goal line where they had 3rd and goal to 2, and that made it 3rd and goal to 7. And so they ended up having to settle for a field goal, so it was a 6-point game instead of what would have been a 10-point game, and that did make a huge difference in the game. So you're definitely right there. But it wasn't like a ball game where they had 7 penalties for 75 yards, I guess is my point. And they still just found a way to collapse at the end. So where do you go from here? Because this is a rough loss. They play SMU next week. There were a lot of things that happened in this ball game. Another thing that I'm kind of happy that people haven't brought up, but I did think that play with Pittman, the UCF tight end, I thought that was a fumble. Now it was a bang bplay, and it was one of those things where whatever they called on the field, they were going to stick with because there didn't appear to be enough video evidence to, overturn it, right? But man, that was really close, and that was a great strip by, I think that was a Bizor that came in there and ripped it out. But bottom line was, like, you can't, when you blow a lead like this, you can't call on, or you can't count on officials to bail you out. Matthew asked what's better, or what would have been better, a 4th and 6 or a 58-yard field goal attempt. That was the only thing they could do. They had to kick the field goal in that situation. They had 4 seconds left and 1 timeout, so they didn't have any opportunity to run a play for more yardage. And that was actually, I thought Hoover had a great game. I thought he missed that throw. He had JP on the out route, and I think that would have put him at the 35-yard line, which would have made it 52, which would have been a more manageable kick. But, when you're talking about kicking from 58 yards, that's going to be tough to do. So, yeah, you get SMU next week, and SMU is actually coming off a bye week. They had Kevin Jennings. They named Kevin Jennings their starting quarterback, so they'll have a new QB. The killer is, I think the Big 12 is pretty wide open. And I feel like even with this team's issues, if they could have found a way to win the game tonight, you could figure some things out moving forward. And the schedule is not just a complete bear where you think you can't find a way to get some wins. And I think Dylan said, it's just 1 loss. So, don't get over your skis here and overreact. And you're right, but golly, this was a tough L. And I think UCF is a good football team. We'll see where they go from here. And that was a heck of a gut check win by them after getting down by 21 points. But my issues with TCU are just, I don't know how you can win consistently with these types of issues in the trenches. And for all the talk about OU and Texas are gone, and so it's going to be different. There's still teams on the schedule that can whip you up front. Utah is physical. And you have to go on the road and play them. The team that played tonight, I guess they could hang just from the virtue of having a good quarterback and a good receiver, but you're going to get your butt kicked. When Oklahoma State comes to town, and I know their offensive line hasn't been fantastic yet, but they got Ollie Gordon. That's going to be a really tough matchup. There's just tough matchups on the schedule. And Eddie brought up a good point. He said, run and shooting offense can't make 1 yard when you need it on the goal line. So I had this thought in the first half, and I wrote it down. And this might be the wrong way to phrase it, but I said when you can't run the ball, your offense doesn't have much room for error. And what I mean by that was the time that I wrote it in the ball game, they had 2nd and 2. They're up 21-7. They had 2nd and 2. And to that point, the TCU offense had been cooking, and they had really been doing a lot in 3rd and long, which is not ideal. But, Josh Hoover and the receivers have been getting it done on 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8, all those things. So they had the ball on 2nd and 2. Cam gets a carry. He gets hit at the line of scrimmage, but he actually bounced out of that tackle and got to the outside, and then he falls down, right? So now you got 3rd and 2. Well, since you don't feel like you can run the ball, they tried to run a little, immediate slant pattern to J.P. Richardson. He gets tangled up with a corner, and now you got to punt. Then later in the ball game, they had 2nd and 5, and they hit JoJo Earl on a little crossing pattern. And they had it blocked up, and he just fell down. And so now you got 3rd and 5, and UCF had a good pass rush, and Hoover tries to get outside, and he can't hit Cam Cook on the sidelines if you have to punt. So when you can't run the ball, like suddenly those 2nd manageable and 3rd manageable situations get a lot tougher because you have to throw to keep the chains moving. Mike says we'll just buy a better line in the offseason. That's what we've been trying to do the last 2 off seasons. We haven't done it. So I mean, I don't know what we're paying these guys, and I appreciate the Flying T Club. I know they're trying to make it work, but it's not working. This O-line is good in pass protection. I'll give them that. But running the ball, they can't do it. And at a certain point, it can't keep being an excuse about the previous regime and just their failures there. Like, whether it's Kendall or Sonny or AJ Ricker, somebody has to take responsibility for the fact that they're not comfortable even attempting to run the ball in these situations when it's pretty obvious that, you need a couple yards. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not giving up here. Like, I'm not saying the season's a total wash. There's a lot of football left to be played, but it's hard to find a lot of positives in what happened tonight, because it's not only that you blew a lead, it's that even if you won the game, I think we would have been coming in here saying, well, you got a victory. That's awesome. That's cool. But these things are pretty out in front, and you got to fix it. And it really starts with getting beat on the O-line and D-line. Vince says they're average. Yeah, that's what I feel like right now. I mean, I just feel like they're an average football team. I hope they can get better as the year goes on. But at the moment, you beat Stanford on the road. I thought that was a nice win to start the season. You handled your business against a bad LIU team, and then you take a loss to UCF at home when you had a 21-point lead. That doesn't give me a ton of confidence that you're on the right trajectory. But it is early in the season. They play SMU next week, and then you start that run of Kansas, Houston, leading into Utah. Let me see if Sonny said anything yet. I'll hop on Twitter and see if we got some reports from the people that are there. Sonny Dyke said UCF were in the same exact plays in the second half as they did in the first half. Says the run game just wore them down. This is from Steven Johnson. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Like, when teams can run the ball, they do wear you down. And that, again, comes back to playing complementary football. And you can't play complementary football if you can't run the ball. Like, it's just not something that you can do. So it kind of circles back to that. But defensively, I don't know why they didn't commit more people to attacking the run game. The pass rush was non-existent. I think part of that was because UCF ran the ball so well, and most of their passing was off play action, so you had to account for that. But they just weren't able to get back there and disrupt him, and give a lot of credit to the UCF O-line for getting the job done. Dyke says TCU has to be able to run the ball better, and it's hard to maintain a lead when you can't do that. Yes, I agree. So attempt to run the ball. Like, it's not even that they couldn't run the ball well tonight, it's that they didn't bother to do it. Cam Cook had 11 carries. Dominic Johnson had 2. Josh Hoover had one. Savion Williams got in the Wildcat and had one. Jeremy Payne had one. Jeremy Payne also had a screen pass where he, had a nice little game there. But again, they had 70 offensive plays tonight. 53 of them were pass plays. And that's a little misleading because a lot of it was the bubble screen stuff, but still, you get the point. There's got to be more balance in this offense. It just has to be. And this is an ugly loss. And there's been too many of those in the last 2 years, like West Virginia at home, Colorado at home. Add this one to the list. Texas Tech on the road. Like, there's just been too many of these losses that are inexcusable, and they're starting to pile up here in the last year plus. TCU's 2-1. We'll be here Monday and the rest of the week. It's Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. Thanks for rocking with me after a loss. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcast.